The cul-de-sacs of Pinecrest Estates gleamed like a magazine spread under the relentless California sun. Every lawn clipped to exactly 2 inches. Every mailbox painted the approved shade of heritage beige. Every flagpole flying only the stars and stripes on approved days. It was the kind of place that looked peaceful until you read the 30-page HOA handbook that Karen Whitaker had personally revised last year. Karen, president for 8 straight terms, wore her title like a crown and her pastel cardigans like armor. She patrolled the streets in her golf cart with a clipboard, ready to issue $500 fines for anything from excessive holiday cheer to unauthorized political expression. I was Avery Quinn, the single woman in 1428 Maple Lane who apparently ruined the whole aesthetic. My crime? 3 years ago, I planted lavender instead of the mandated boxwood. Karen had called an emergency board meeting, declared my garden a visual blight, and started the rumor mill. Avery's situation is just unfortunate. She doesn't seem to care about community standards. Single. Worked from home in pajamas half the day. You know how it is. The whispers spread faster than crabgrass. Neighbors stopped waving. Invitations dried up. I became the cautionary tale parents pointed to when they warned their kids about letting standards slip. I never fought back in public. I paid the fines with a polite smile. I kept my head down while I quietly built something they could never imagine. Because while Karen was busy measuring my grass with a ruler, I was measuring something far bigger, the financial collapse of Pinecrest Estates itself. The HOA was drowning in secret lawsuits, mismanaged reserves, and overdue vendor bills. They needed a savior. They just didn't know their savior was the woman they loved to hate. My company, Apex Community Solutions, had quietly become the largest HOA turnaround firm on the West Coast. We took over failing associations, streamlined operations, and turned red ink black. Pinecrest had approached us 6 months ago under a shell LLC, begging for a management contract worth $8 million over 5 years. They had no idea the CEO signing the papers would be me. Then came the text on December 28th at 3:47 p.m. It arrived in the official HOA group chat titled Pinecrest Family Connect, Karen's favorite propaganda channel. The preview line was enough to drop the temperature in my home office 10 degrees. Avery, serious request. Please skip the Holiday Gala this year. I opened it. Karen's words were surgical. After discussion with the board and considering the guest list, we feel your current situation would be an unnecessary distraction. My son's fiancé comes from a very prominent family. We want everything to go smoothly. It's better for everyone if you sit this one out. Order yourself something nice and enjoy the evening at home. We all appreciate your understanding. The chat exploded immediately. Karen is right, wrote Mrs. Hargrove from 1401. We can't have any awkwardness. Avery, honey, you know how you get, added the woman who once asked me to hide my electric car because the charger looked tacky. Even my next-door neighbor chimed in. It's about presentation. Dear, I stared at the screen. My situation. They thought I was still the broke freelancer bouncing between gigs. They had no clue that the woman they were photoshopping out of their perfect portrait was about to become the landlord of their entire community. I typed 2 words back into the chat. Understood. Enjoy. Then I closed the app, walked to the window, and looked out over the identical roofs of Pinecrest Estates. Somewhere down the street, Karen was probably clinking glasses with her son's fiancé, bragging about how she'd protected the neighborhood from people like me. She had no idea the person she feared most was already inside the gates and about to own the locks. I poured myself a glass of the same vintage Cabernet I'd bought with my last 7-figure exit and smiled into the dark liquid. The gala was on New Year's Eve. The contract negotiation meeting was January 2nd at 9 a.m. Sharp. Karen wanted me gone from her perfect party. Fine. I would show up in the one place she could never ban me. The next 3 days were a masterclass in quiet preparation. I had my executive assistant, a terrifyingly efficient 24-year-old named Calvin, pull every document the HOA had ever filed. I learned that Karen's son, Dylan Whitaker, was engaged to Lauren Harrington, a rising star at a prestigious M&A firm. Lauren was the lead counsel representing Pinecrest in the management contract talks. Karen had spent months bragging to the entire neighborhood about her future daughter-in-law's pedigree. She comes from old money, Karen had posted in the chat last week. We're so blessed. I asked Calvin for Lauren's win rate, her negotiation style, and exactly where she folded under pressure. By December 31st, I had a full dossier. I also had the boardroom prepped, smart glass that could frost on command, catered breakfast from the five-star place Karen could never afford, and NDAs stricter than a federal prison. On New Year's Eve, I sat in my living room, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the community she ruled, watching the HOA group chat light up with photos of the gala. Karen in her sequined president's sash, Dylan in a rented tux, Lauren looking elegant and oblivious. The captions were pure performance. VIP table is insane. The mayor stopped by. Best gala ever. I sipped my wine and scrolled. They were celebrating the exclusion of the embarrassment. They had no idea the embarrassment was about to sign their paycheck. At midnight, the fireworks exploded over the valley. I raised my glass to my own reflection in the glass. Happy New Year. Avery, I whispered. Tomorrow they learn how to pronounce your name. January 2nd arrived with the kind of crisp blue sky that made every HOA violation notice look extra petty. The boardroom on the 52nd floor of the Apex Tower smelled of expensive coffee and impending doom. I sat at the head of the obsidian table in the midnight blue suit I'd had tailored in London, the one that didn't ask for permission. To my right was my CTO, Ruth, who spoke in algorithms and thought in percentages. To my left was Mara, my general counsel, a former federal prosecutor who treated contracts like cage fights. Calvin's voice came through the intercom. They're in the elevator. Send them in. The doors hissed open. Marcus Thorne, the HOA treasurer who looked like he hadn't slept since the last reserve shortfall, led the pack. Behind him came the rest of the desperate board. Then the lawyers from Barton and Finch marched in like they owned the place. Expensive suits. Even more expensive egos. And there she was, Lauren Harrington. Second chair, tablet in hand, stylus already moving. She wore the same charcoal suit from the gala photos, pearls instead of diamonds. She hadn't looked up yet. She was still arranging her papers with obsessive precision, whispering last-minute notes to the senior partner. I didn't stand. Guests stood until I invited them. Good morning, I said, voice low and level. Please sit. Chairs scraped. Briefcases clicked. Water glasses filled. Lauren took the seat directly across from Mara, 2 spots down from me. She still hadn't glanced at my face. I let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. Then I leaned forward, hands flat on the black stone. Welcome to Apex Community Solutions. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's skip the pleasantries. I'm Avery Quinn, founder and CEO. The air left the room like someone had opened a vacuum seal. Lauren's head snapped up so fast her stylus clattered across the table. The pen hit the obsidian and rang like a gunshot. Her tablet slid and knocked her water glass. She didn't move to catch it. She was frozen, eyes locked on mine, brain trying to reconcile 2 universes that were never meant to collide. Data set A, Avery the embarrassment, the rule breaker, the woman Karen had banned from the gala. Data set B, Avery Quinn, CEO of the $8 million firm about to swallow her future mother-in-law's entire HOA. The color drained from her face in real time. Neck first, then cheeks, until she looked like old parchment. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. The senior partner, Arthur Finch, frowned. MS. Quinn, Do you and MS Harrington know each other? I held Lauren's gaze without blinking. We've met. Briefly. Strictly social. I'll let the word social drip with exactly the right amount of boredom. Lauren made a sound that was half gasp, half sob. She grabbed her water glass. Her hand shook so badly half the contents spilled across the leather pad in front of her. Arthur Finch tried to regain control. Small world. Shall we proceed? Yes, I said. Let's proceed. I tapped the table. Every screen lit up with the acquisition summary. The offer is $8 million for full management takeover of Pinecrest Estates. All cash. No contingencies. However, this valuation is contingent on a complete restructuring of your governance within the first quarter. I spent the next 20 minutes dismantling their operation with surgical calm. I listed every lawsuit they'd lost, every reserve shortfall, every vendor they'd stiffed. I quoted Karen's own emails where she'd approved illegal special assessments. The room was mesmerized. Even Finch was nodding, impressed by the brutality of the logic. But Lauren was disintegrating. Her notes had become jagged scribbles. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Every time I looked her direction, she flinched. She was waiting for me to mention the gala. Waiting for me to drop the family drama right on the mahogany and destroy her credibility in front of her boss and future father-in-law. I didn't. That would have been too easy. Instead, I turned to her directly. MS Harrington, you're the lead on the intellectual property and governance transfer section. Correct. Lauren looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She opened her mouth to speak about bylaws and transition protocols, but nothing came out. She cleared her throat. Nothing. I cannot. She stood so fast her chair screeched backward. I need a moment. Excuse me. She clutched her tablet to her chest like a shield and practically ran for the door. The handle fumbled. The door hissed shut behind her. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Arthur Finch's face tightened. I apologize. MS Harrington has been under the weather. I'll handle her portion myself. I smiled the smallest, coldest smile. That would be best. We don't have time for delays. Apex operates on efficiency. We continued. I didn't ask if she was okay. I simply moved to the next clause, employee severance for the current HOA staff. But through the soundproof glass, I could see the hallway. Lauren was standing by the window, back to the boardroom. Phone pressed to her ear, shoulders shaking. She was calling Dylan. I knew it with absolute certainty. She was asking the man who had told her I was a joke why the neighborhood Embarrassment was currently carving up his mother's entire empire like a Thanksgiving turkey. I turned back to the table. Mr. Thorne, let's discuss the earn-out period. Inside, the bomb was already ticking. The pneumatic hiss of the boardroom door closing behind Lauren felt like the sound of a guillotine blade dropping. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Ruth spun her pen between her fingers and let out a short, incredulous laugh. Okay, I've seen lawyers cry after a deal goes south. I've seen them throw chairs. But I've never seen one sprint out before we even open the prospectus. Did I miss a memo? Did we install ejector seats? I kept my eyes on the closed door, visualizing the chaos currently racing through the phone lines toward Karen's son. That, I said flatly, is my HOA president's future daughter-in-law. The silence changed flavor. It became calculating. Mara Jennings didn't gasp. She immediately switched into damage control mode. Conflict of interest. Undisclosed personal relationship between the principal of the acquiring entity and counsel for the target association. This is a mess. I didn't flinch. It isn't a drama. It's a deal. Lauren Harrington is a junior associate. She's irrelevant to the asset purchase agreement. If she can't handle the room, that's a personnel issue for Barton and Finch, not a strategic issue for Apex. Mara studied me for a long moment, looking for any trace of the woman who might be emotionally compromised. She found only the CEO. Understood. We treat it as a non-event. Arthur Finch returned alone. Jaw tight. MS. Harrington has suffered a sudden personal health emergency. She has withdrawn for the day. I will handle her portion. I hope she recovers, I said, voice perfectly polite. Please pass along our regards. We resumed. The personal drama evaporated, replaced by the grinding machinery of high-stakes capitalism. I offered a shorter earn-out timeline in exchange for immediate board seat control. Marcus Thorne folded like wet cardboard. He just wanted to sign and escape. Through the glass, I watched Lauren pace the hallway, gesturing wildly. She was breaking. The woman who had once posed for gala photos with Karen's son was realizing every story she'd been told about that Quinn woman was a lie. And if that was a lie, what else was? The meeting ended 90 minutes later with signatures on every line except mine. I still held the pen. The final authority. MS. Quinn, Finch said, voice strained. We're ready for your signature. I tapped the table once. The smart glass frosted, sealing us in. Before I sign, there's one more item. I slid a single printed page across the obsidian. It was the screenshot of Karen's gala band text. Timestamped 3:47 p.m. December 28th. Your client, the HOA board, has been operating under the assumption that I am an embarrassment unworthy of their events. They have spent years fining me, slandering me, and excluding me while simultaneously begging my company for a bailout. I want that on the record. Finch went pale. The board members shifted in their seats like children caught stealing cookies. I finally signed. The pen scratched across the paper with a sound like a period at the end of a very long sentence. Deal closed, I said. Effective immediately, Apex Community Solutions assumes full management of Pinecrest Estates. All prior board decisions are subject to review, including the ones that involve personal vendettas. I stood. Calvin, please escort our guests out and have security bring MS. Whitaker and her son to my private office. They wanted a meeting with the owner. They're about to get one. The heavy door to my corner office clicked shut behind Karen Whitaker and her son Dylan. Karen still wore the same pastel cardigan from the gala, now slightly wrinkled from stress. Dylan looked like he'd slept in his suit, hair gelled within an inch of its life, eyes darting around the room that cost more than his leased Audi. Karen tried the same tone she used at board meetings. Avery, dear, this is clearly some misunderstanding. We've always wanted what's best for the community. I didn't offer them seats. I stayed standing behind my desk, city skyline glittering behind me like a crown. Let's skip the performance. You banned me from the gala because my situation would embarrass your son's fiancée. You call me a visual blight for 3 years. You weaponized the entire neighborhood against me. And all while your HOA was secretly bankrupt and begging my company for mercy. Dylan stepped forward, bravado cracking. You set this up. You knew Lauren was coming. You sat there like a spider. You wrote the guest list. I cut in. Voice calm. You told your fiancé I was unemployed. You told the entire chat I was an embarrassment. All I did was show up to my job. Karen's hands trembled around her purse. We were protecting the aesthetic. You know how important first impressions are with Lauren's family. Protecting the aesthetic, I repeated, letting the words curdle. While your son was hiding $300,000 in credit card debt and Lauren was unknowingly paying for your wedding deposits. While you were fining residents for holiday lights left up 2 days too long and approving illegal assessments for your own golf cart upgrades. Dylan's face went gray. How did you? Because I own the company that now owns your books. Every text, every email, every secret reserve raid, it's all mine now. Karen clutched the edge of my desk like it might save her. You can't do this. We'll fight it. The community will never accept. The community already knows, I said softly. I tapped my tablet. The wall screen behind me lit up with a press release scheduled to drop in 48 hours. Apex Community Solutions acquires Pinecrest Estates Management. New era of transparency begins. My name was in bold. CEO Avery Quinn. The woman they had spent years erasing. Dylan's voice cracked. You're enjoying this. You want to ruin us. I looked at him, the golden boy who had never once defended me in the group chat. I don't think about you enough to want you ruined. I'm simply doing my job. The same job you both decided made me unworthy of a seat at your table. Karen tried one last card. Think of the children. Think of property values. If this gets out, it's already out, I said. And the only thing dropping in value is your presidency. The board has already received my first directive. New elections within 30 days. Term limits enforced. No more lifetime dictators. Dylan lunged forward. Desperate. We can fix this. Delay the press release. Just until after the wedding. Give me 3 months. I raised one eyebrow. You want me to commit securities fraud so you can keep lying to your fiancé? The same fiancé who just learned every story you told her about me was fiction. The door opened. Mara stepped in, tablet in hand. Mr. Whitaker, MS. Whitaker, this conversation is being recorded for security purposes. Any further attempt to influence corporate decisions, solicit favors, or spread defamatory statements will result in immediate litigation. We have the receipts. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Dylan looked at the city view, then at the woman he had spent years mocking, and finally understood the canyon between the story he'd sold and the reality standing in front of him. Security will escort you both out, I said. Your guest passes are revoked permanently. Enjoy the rest of your day. They left without another word. The door closed with a soft, final click. I walked to the window and watched their tiny figures cross the plaza below, Karen's cardigan flapping in the wind. Dylan's shoulders hunched like a man who had just realized the house he thought he owned actually owned him. For the first time in years, the silence in my office felt light. Clean. 2 weeks later, Pinecrest Estates looked exactly the same on the surface. Same beige mailboxes. Same 2-inch lawns. But underneath, everything had changed. The new board, elected in the landslide I quietly engineered, had already repealed 17 of Karen's most ridiculous rules. Residents could finally fly the flags they wanted. Solar panels were no longer eyesores. Holiday lights could stay up until February if people felt like it. Fines dropped 90% overnight. Karen had resigned in disgrace after the press release hit every local news outlet. The headline, HOA President's Personal Vendetta Exposed by Secret Millionaire Neighbor, trended for 3 straight days. Her golf cart was repossessed for unpaid association dues. Dylan's wedding was quietly canceled. Lauren had moved out the same night she left my boardroom. I was walking my lavender, now officially approved, when Mrs. Hargrove from 1401 actually waved. A real wave. Not the tight-lipped H-O, a nod I used to get. Avery, she called, jogging over in her gardening clogs. I just wanted to say thank you. We had no idea. The way Karen treated you for years, we're all so sorry. I smiled. The first genuine one I'd given a neighbor in years. Water under the bridge. New management. New rules. That's all. She hesitated, then added, if it's not too much trouble, my daughter's getting married next spring. Would you consider coming? No pressure. Just we'd love to have you. I laughed softly. I'd be honored. That evening I sat on my porch with a glass of the same Cabernet I'd drunk on New Year's Eve. The community chat, now renamed Pinecrest Connect and moderated by actual humans, was full of grateful posts. People sharing before and after photos of their yards. Jokes about finally being able to park their cars straight. One resident even posted a meme of Karen's face on a most wanted poster with the caption, "Wanted for crimes against grass." My phone buzzed. A new message from Lauren. Thank you for the referral. I just accepted a position at a firm that actually values integrity. And thank you for not making it uglier than it had to be. I misjudged you. I'm sorry. I typed back one line. We all misjudge people sometimes. Welcome to the right side of the story. I set the phone down and looked out over the neighborhood I now technically managed. The sun was setting in that perfect California gold that made every house look expensive. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear kids laughing. The sound of people finally allowed to live without fear of a clipboard. Karen had wanted perfection. She had wanted control. She had wanted everyone to perform for her vision of standards. I had simply wanted the truth. And in the end, the truth, quiet, patient, and backed by $8 million, had been the most devastating force of all. My name is Avery Quinn. I am 36 years old. I'm the woman they once banned from the gala. And for the first time in my life, the entire neighborhood knows exactly who I am. I raise my glass to the lavender blooming proudly in my front yard. Here's to community standards, I whispered. The ones that actually matter. The wind carried the sound of laughter down the street. And for the first time in years, it didn't feel like it was laughing at me. It felt like it was laughing with me.